The Philadelphia Eagles offense is being far too conservative in 2025. If they want to beat the Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football, they need to be a lot more aggressive.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day, and thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. What a dramatic week coming to an end after a big win over the Green Bay Packers. All of the A.J. Brown drama gearing up for a highly anticipated matchup between the Eagles and the Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football. It's been a whirlwind of a week. And while I don't agree with A.J. Brown's methods of communication because it stirred up all of this drama yet again for the third time this season for, it feels like, the fifth or sixth time in the last 3 seasons, I do agree with his overall message. And one thing that Nick Sirianni said yesterday in his press conference that I don't really agree with, and I think they have to have a different offensive approach this week against a loaded Detroit Lions football team, especially on the offensive side of the ball, is they need to be more aggressive. I totally understand what Sirianni said yesterday about how not turning the football over is something they take pride in. It's something that this offense prioritizes. It's something that won them a championship in 2024, playing safe football in the passing game, relying on their run game, and their defense allowed them to win a Super Bowl. I totally agree with that. I think not turning the ball over is instrumental when it comes to winning football games. If you win the turnover battle, more times than not, you do win the game. But I do feel like for the 2025 Philadelphia Eagles, who have not had a successful, consistent rushing attack, I do think they need to play a little bit more aggressive. There's a middle ground between playing reckless and then playing scared. I think the Eagles can play safe but aggressive football. There is a middle ground I think they need to come to because right now they are relying way too much on their defense to bail them out of close games week after week. Outside of 2 games, the Minnesota Vikings win and the New York Giants win back-to-back before the bye week, the Eagles' offense has not been convincing for 4 quarters at all this season, and that is A.J. Brown's overall message and his overall frustrations. Sure, a lot of it also has to do with his individual involvement. If the Eagles' passing attack was crushing, but it was all because of Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, would he still be upset? Probably. But his overall message is about just how he doesn't like the offense's approach. I think he has a certain philosophical idea of what this unit should look like. And then I think Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, Kevin Patullo right now maybe have a different idea. A.J. Brown has preached it all year, especially after that Rams game, that he wants this team to let their killers kill, including him. He wants his cake. He wants to be able to eat it too in the form of a win, but he wants to be able to contribute. He wants this team to play aggressive because they can. They can be aggressive, and that doesn't mean that they're going to turn the football over. You do not have to play like the 2015 Philadelphia Eagles that did not have the personnel to air it out, that did not have the personnel to play aggressive. You should not be playing scared when Jalen Hurts this season has the highest passer rating on third down among all quarterbacks. This team should not have the highest 3-and-out percentage per drive through 9 games of any offense since 2014. There is a middle ground between playing mistake-filled football, forcing turnovers like your Jameis Winston or Carson Wentz or Will Levis, but then also what the Eagles are doing at times, which is just giving up on drives. The run game's not working. It's 3rd and 10 plus. Draw to Will Shipley. Let's take Saquon Barkley off the field. Let's not even give our elite weapons an opportunity. Look at the games that they did finally give those guys chances to make plays down the field on third down. The Denver game, the second game against the Giants, the game against the Minnesota Vikings, 3rd and 10 plus. Devontae Smith was making plays. A.J. Brown was making plays. There's ways to be aggressive without being reckless. And yeah, don't throw the ball in triple coverage if you're Jalen Hurts when you're leading by 7 in the second quarter. But if it's 3rd and 9 in the third quarter of a one-score game against a rival or a big-time NFC opponent that you need to beat for the 1 seed, like the Green Bay Packers, or this week against the Detroit Lions, I don't think it's reckless, and I think it's smart football to be aggressive, to go for the kill. I don't know. I don't think the Eagles are going to change this approach going forward, considering what Nick Sirianni said, considering the fact that it has been working, it has been resulting in wins over the last year and a half. I think they like the identity of having an elite defense carry them, and an all-time clutch offense finishes the job in the fourth quarter. It certainly does work, but you're just making more work for yourself. You're making it more difficult. Like, yeah, you are so good in one-score games. This is the most clutch football team I have ever seen growing up as an Eagles fan and now analyst, but they should be able to win games more convincingly than they do. And I think if they were more aggressive like they were in 2022, the first half of 2023, they would be able to close games out a little bit easier. I don't know. Again, I've said it on episodes before. There's a spectrum, right? There's playing scared. There's playing reckless. I think the Eagles, A.J. Brown feels like they're too far on this end, and Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni don't want to go too far on the opposite end. I do think there is a middle ground, and I think it's what you saw against the Minnesota Vikings and the New York Giants. I think they need to get back to that. Maybe they will against the Detroit Lions. I feel like they're going to have to, because there are games where the defense isn't going to be able to hold a really good NFC team to 7 points. There's pretty much zero, shut them out the entire game. The Detroit Lions have a lot of weapons on offense. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta not playing in this game, but normally a guy like that, you play a team like this in the playoffs, you can't win a lot of games just relying on your defense. Your offense has stars at every position in their prime. You should be able to rely on them and not be like, oh no, like we're a turnover waiting to happen. Jalen Hurts is outside of the first half of 2023, the majority of Jalen Hurts' career, he has not been a Carson Wentz kind of player. He's very good at taking care of the football, picking and choosing his spots. When he's aggressive, normally he's still not putting the football in harm's way. There's, again, a difference between being aggressive versus pressing and being reckless. And maybe the Eagles think, unless we have to do that, we're not going to do it because we don't need to. And who am I to judge? They've won a Super Bowl this way. They are 7-2 right now. But I do think A.J. Brown is right that they are putting way too much pressure on one unit of this football team. And the numbers tell you the story. Like, a team that has historically great talent should not have the most 3-and-outs per drive in the NFL since 2014. In 11 years. Like, that's unbelievable when Jalen Hurts this year on 3rd and long has been balling when you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. So I think there is a middle ground they need to come to. We'll see what happens against the Detroit Lions. I'm very curious how this matchup is going to go, but it's a really big game. The Eagles need this one because if they get it, they have a stranglehold on the 1 seed in the NFC. They'll have tiebreakers over the Rams, the Buccaneers, the Packers, the Lions. The only team that they don't play that'll battle them for that 1 seed is the Seattle Seahawks. So this is a really big one. And again, don't play reckless in this football game. Your defense is playing so well. Definitely don't turn the football over and put the ball in harm's way. But I'm not going to accept the same game script that we saw against Green Bay where, yeah, again, the defense was cooking in a rock fight. I get maybe being a little more conservative in that game, but they weren't even trying on some drives to move the football. I think trying to score points should be the priority, not trying. It feels like at times the priority is trying not to turn the football over. That takes precedent over trying to score points. Trying not to turn the football over should be atop your list of priorities on offense, but number 1 should be trying to score points. I want this team to try to score more points, the rest of the way. And I feel like most of you agree with me on that. It sounds very obvious, but I think this team, that it's kind of split when it comes to the philosophy overall of the offense. All right, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, Jared Goff versus Jalen Hurts for this first time since 2022. I'm going to tell you why, although both teams are loaded on offense for these quarterbacks, Jared Goff is much more of a system quarterback than Jalen Hurts. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, the NBA. There's no better time to jump in on the action. And if you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least two player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere the PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using PrizePicks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting for the Eagles, for the 76ers. I love picking my favorite players, Jalen Hurts, Tyrese Maxey, to see how my predictions play out. Plus, the new stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on, let's say, like Steph Curry's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves your lineup from a loss. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 off in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. And thanks so much for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network. Eagles, Lions on Sunday. It is funny. Aiden Hutchinson said today that it's a must-win game for the Lions, that they have had this game circled on their calendar. Highly anticipated matchup. It feels very reminiscent of the 2017-2018 New Orleans Saints that just wouldn't shut up about, if we would have played the Eagles last year in the NFC title, we would have beat them. It's like, all right, man, you didn't get there. You lost in the divisional round. The Detroit Lions are kind of doing the same thing where it's like, if only they would have saw us in Detroit, things would have been different. It's like, you lost to the Commanders. I don't know what you want from us. It's kind of a flex for the Eagles because Nick Sirianni said today, it's like, he was about that from Hutchinson. He's like, this is just another game for us. For the Eagles, this is nothing. You're at the top. It's a really important game, but the Lions are acting like this is their Super Bowl. They're out there to try to prove that this is their conference, that last year would have been different if they didn't blow it against Washington. But I think even if the Lions won this football game, I've always said that a revenge game does not exist in the regular season. You're not avenging anything in the regular season that happened in the playoffs. So, yes, if the Lions get the Eagles in the NFC title this year, for instance, or the divisional round, that's a revenge game. That's a game they can circle and feel motivated. But I don't know. I guess it's a litmus test game for them. The Eagles are going to get everybody's best, but I just think it's kind of a flex for the Eagles that Detroit thinks this is their Super Bowl. But it is a really important game for the Eagles, and the Lions are loaded on offense, and they really bounced back in a big way against the Commanders after Dan Campbell took over play calling duties. Jared Goff got Jahmyr Gibbs involved even in the passing game. Amon-Ra St. Brown as a dominant slot receiver. Jameson Williams, one of the fastest receivers in football. David Montgomery should be a starting running back somewhere. That's the best RB2 in all of football. So this is a loaded team for Jared Goff. Jalen Hurts has as much, if not more, talent on his offensive side of the football. It's a really fun matchup, not just for Eagles and Lions fans, but for NFL fans in general. It is interesting when you look at Hurts and Goff, right? Because both have 3 to 4 truly elite weapons and a really good offensive line to work with. And I think because of that, both kind of suffer from this label or this narrative that they're system quarterbacks, that they're carried by the personnel around them. They're not the Patrick Mahomes level of player, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, where you put them in any situation and they're going to thrive. And while I do agree that Goff and Hurts are obviously elevated by their support system, all quarterbacks need a good support system. And I think you're insane if you look at Goff, his track record in LA and Detroit, if you look at Jalen Hurts' track record in Philadelphia, if you don't think that they make their teams better, that they also don't elevate their offenses, the personnel around them, I think you are crazy. But I would argue that that narrative, that label fits Goff way more than it fits Jalen Hurts. I do think that Jalen Hurts carries the Eagles more or elevates them more than Goff elevates Detroit. And a lot of it's because of style of play. Jared Goff is an incredible pocket passer, but he is a statue of a pocket passer, a very old school traditional quarterback. Pocket passers naturally are more reliant on their supporting cast. Goff just cannot elevate to the same degree as Jalen Hurts does, as the way that mobile quarterbacks can. Goff is really bad against pressure. If the Eagles can win with 4 on Sunday night the way they did against the Green Bay Packers offensive line on Monday Night Football, they're going to win this game. Jalen Hurts against pressure this year, he's been the number 1 quarterback against the blitz in the entire league. Goff is not able to elevate his team in that specific way. He can elevate as a pocket passer, and he certainly does, but Jalen has another dynamic to his game that mobile quarterbacks elevate their football team. When pressure breaks down, when it gets to you, you can make plays outside of structure that a Jared Goff can't. So Jared Goff naturally is just more of a system player. And I also think when you look at big games, Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 NFC championships in his career. He's been in some really big games, but he hasn't elevated his team in big moments the way that Jalen Hurts has. Jalen Hurts in 2 Super Bowls and 2 NFC championships played lights out. It feels like every time there's a big game, Jalen has his best performance, whereas Goff, you look at that Super Bowl against the Patriots, you look at the NFC Championship against the 49ers in 2023, blowing that lead. He's not, to me, the same player as a Jalen Hurts. Is he maybe a more accurate passer, a better pocket passer overall than Jalen? Yeah, you could probably make that argument. But when you combine all of the elite characteristics of Hurts versus Goff, again, I do think both are underrated because of the teams that they have played for, the support systems that they've had. But Jalen, to me, is in another tier than Goff. Maybe not by much. Goff is an underrated player, but I think Jalen clear and obviously elevates his football team more than Goff does. There's a difference between, I don't know, this is maybe applies to Hurts more than Goff, but there is a difference to me between a system player being carried by an elite team. I truly believe that Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, those are system players that are made based on their play caller and their surrounding environment, that those guys can't produce anywhere they go, right? There's a difference between that, though, and then an elite player just being on an elite team. Patrick Mahomes, I think we would all agree, is not a system player. But Patrick Mahomes has been in the best offensive system, maybe in the history of the NFL, with Andy Reid as his play caller, with the best tight end of all time on his team in Travis Kelce. He had maybe the best deep threat of all time, or second behind Deshaun Jackson, and Tyreek Hill for the first 4 to 5 years of his career. But we would all agree that Patrick Mahomes is not a system player, right? I think there's a difference there that we need to contextualize that. Jalen Hurts, I think, is an elite player on an elite football team. Jared Goff has elite traits. He's a very good player. But Jared Goff, I don't think you plug and play him in any system in the NFL in any situation and he'll thrive. Jalen Hurts isn't going to thrive anywhere he goes. Again, every quarterback needs a good team to be elite. But Jalen, I do believe you could put on a bad football team and he will elevate them. He will win them more games than they probably should because of his deep ball, because of his clutch gene, his leadership, his ability to not turn the football over, his mobility. Look at the 2021 season. You're throwing to Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor. You had, of course, a rookie Devontae and Dallas Goedert. It's not like you were barren of talent, but that team wasn't good really on defense all that much either, and they were a 4-win team the season before. You plug and play Jalen Hurts instead of Carson Wentz. You win 9 games and you make the playoffs. Jalen proved that he can elevate, I think, more than Jared Goff. So I think both kind of unfairly get labeled. But I do think if you're comparing the two, I've seen some people have dialogue about this week, Jalen is in another tier, in my opinion, than Goff. That doesn't mean Goff isn't a very good football player. A lot of it's skill set based, but a lot of it's too, big games. Goff has not stepped up the way Jalen has. Kind of like Jordan Love last week. If this game is close in the fourth quarter, Jalen Hurts, I trust more than almost any quarterback in a one-score game to make the play, whereas the other quarterback likely makes the mistake. Outside of Patrick Mahomes and maybe Josh Allen, there's nobody else in the NFL that you should trust more in the fourth quarter of a game than Jalen Hurts. So if this game is close, give me Hurts over Goff all day, every day. All right, guys, LOE3 coming up next, presented by FanDuel. I got 3 player prop bets for you to take in Eagles-Lions. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Gametime. The NFL season is back, and we're halfway through it already. Honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans, cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Gametime last week, was buying tickets. Me and my girlfriend are going to Eagles-Bears Black Friday. Instantly saw amazing deals, talking about Eagles tickets for as low as $100. The app made it super simple, and I could see the exact view of our seat before buying the tickets. So download Gametime today, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. All right, wrapping up this Friday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks as always for making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure your second listen is the Locked On NFL podcast. My guy, Tyler the Madman Rowland, gets you ready in the morning with a shot of football espresso. Oof, I need a shot of espresso. And then Tony Wiggins, the barber, takes you to the barber shop in the afternoon to talk shop, to talk football. 2 episodes a day, Monday through Friday. Wherever you get Locked On Eagles, subscribe to Locked On NFL. Time now for LOE3 presented by FanDuel. 3 player prop bets to take for Eagles-Lions after going 3-0 in Eagles-Giants. Eagles-Lions is Sunday night. I went 0-3 against the Packers on Monday Night Football. So we have dropped now to 10-17 on the year. We are still in the positives, though, for unit shares at plus 0.79. Going to try and get that a little high for you and not make you sweat this out for the entirety of 2025. But again, if I can give myself cut myself some slack here, the Eagles offense has been so inconsistent that betting on this football team to score points, to produce yardage consistently has been a very difficult thing. Like, unless you're just betting on Devontae Smith every single week, even the Jalen Hurts anytime rushing touchdown hasn't hit like it normally does in previous years. I mean, when was the last time Jalen had a rushing touchdown? I think it was the first game against the Giants, right? It was the tush push on Thursday Night Football. He's gone. I wonder when the last time he did that. When was the last time Jalen went 3 straight games without a rushing touchdown, let alone off a tush push, but alone any sort of rushing touchdown? That's pretty crazy. So if I could cut myself some slack, it's been tough to bet on this offense, but hopefully they'll bounce back against the Lions, and that means we'll bounce back for LOE3. So here's what I'm taking for the game. My first bet, A.J. Brown, over 4.5 total receptions. I cannot believe this is at plus 112 on FanDuel. I know A.J. Brown has not really been involved in the offense this year, but considering all the drama this week about getting him involved, I think the Eagles are going to make it a priority early and often to get A.J. Brown easy targets. Maybe move him in the slot more, pre-snap motion, some crossing patterns. The fact that he has barely run any routes over the middle of the field this year, any crossers and slants, is unbelievable. So for me, I think A.J. Brown, normally when this kind of drama starts, he does tend to get his way early in the next game. 4.5 is his total reception line. I love that at plus 112. Like, give me those odds with A.J. Brown. Then I have a 2-leg parlay for Jalen Hurts throwing the football, plus 144. Jalen throws for over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I think he gets 2 at least. And then over 203.5 passing yards. So 203.5 passing yards, 1.5 passing touchdowns. That 2-leg parlay is at plus 144. Not really terrified of the Lions secondary. I think you can take advantage of that defense. By the way, how lucky are the Eagles that they took Quinyon Mitchell instead of Terrion Arnold? Just saying. I was a big Terrion Arnold guy in that draft, but Quinyon was my guy, and Mitchell's going to be an all-pro this year. I'm not giving up on, Terrion Arnold is a good player. He's not a huge, Jalen Reagor level bust. But I do think, obviously, the Eagles got the better player there. And I think Jalen will have success against the Lions secondary. And then my final bet is also a Jalen Hurts bet. I just mentioned it. This anytime touchdown's got to come back, right? I mean, Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown at plus 120. I'm going to take it and imagine they get into the red zone and use him in the tush push. I also did notice early on in that game, although he fumbled, I liked that the Eagles ran a QB draw up the middle, use Jalen as a north-south runner. I think they'll, even though he fumbled, they'll definitely utilize that more as the year goes on, probably in this game. So that bet has not hit for 3 weeks, for 3 games, I should say, 3 of the last 4 weeks. I think Hurts will get back on track getting into the end zone with his legs. So those are my 3 bets for Eagles, Lions. A.J. Brown over 4.5 total receptions at plus 112. A 2-leg parlay for Jalen Hurts. Over 1.5 passing touchdowns and over 203.5 passing yards. That's at plus 144. And then Jalen Hurts an anytime touchdown score, which is at plus 120. So again, went 0-3 last week. I'm at 10-17 on the year, but plus 0.79 in unit shares. Hopefully we'll get back on track this week. And if we don't, if I go 1-2 or 0-3, the rest of the way, I am just betting with Devontae Smith. Like the rest of time, it'll be either an anytime Devontae Smith receiving touchdown, it'll be the over on his receptions or his receiving yards. Like he really has been the only consistent playmaker on this offense. Dallas Goedert has been consistent at getting touchdowns. He has 7 on the year, but even Dallas Goedert, like yardage-wise, is getting 20 to 30 yards a game. Like he hasn't really been a volume receiver at the tight end position. So if it doesn't work out this week, this will be 2 weeks in a row where I did not bet on Devontae Smith. Moving forward, I will have learned my lesson. I just imagine with these bets I did this week, it's the something's got to give week, right? For A.J. Brown, for Jalen Hurts rushing. I like the matchup against the Lions defense, which is vastly improved compared to last year. But the Eagles still have the advantage if they just stop playing scared, take some chances, give their playmakers the chance to make the elite money, the top tier money that they do. This football team can put up points. And again, it's going to be a close game against the Lions. I don't think they're going to blow them out. But the Eagles should not struggle to produce on offense the way they do week in and week out, even with what I think is a bad play caller, an inconsistent one at best, in Kevin Patullo. So we'll see what happens. We'll see you after the game live right here for the Locked On Eagles postgame show. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts in audio form and on YouTube as well. Thanks as always for making us your first listen each and every day. Thanks as always for downloading, watching, and listening. And let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.